Along the mighty Mekong River in Thailand, where lush green rice fields blend with the rustling sound of the wind through bamboo groves, lies a small village called Ban Pak Nam. There, amidst the simple lives of honest folk, an elephant named Dumbo became a symbol of strength, loyalty, and hope. When the gentle river turned into a raging flood, sweeping away everything in its path, no one could have imagined that Dumbo's wide ears, powerful trunk, and warm heart would guide the villagers through the darkness. This is the story of human kindness, elephantine devotion, and the power of unity in the face of adversity, a journey that began in the days of stormy rain, leaving an everlasting mark along the swirling riverbank. Chapter 1: The Village by the River. In a quiet corner of Chiang Rai province in northern Thailand, there lies a village called Ban Pak Nam, nestled along the banks of the Mekong River. The river is both a lifeline and a source of dread for the villagers. During the dry season, it flows gently, providing water to irrigate the sprawling rice fields. But when the rainy season arrives, it can transform into a ferocious beast, roaring as it sweeps away everything in its path. The people of Ban Pak Nam live simply, bound together like one big family. Among them, Mr. Somchai stands out with his snow-white hair and kind smile. He is not only a diligent farmer but also the region's most skilled elephant keeper. His constant companion is Dumbo, a massive male elephant with ears as wide as fans and calm, intelligent eyes. Dumbo has been with Somchai's family for 3 generations, since the days when Somchai's grandfather was still young. To the villagers, Dumbo is more than just an animal, he is a true member of their community. On ordinary days, Dumbo helps the villagers haul timber from the forest, transport rice after the harvest, or even carries the children on his back for rides around the village. The deep, warm trumpeting of Dumbo and the joyful laughter of the kids often echo through the peaceful air. But no one could have foreseen that one day, Dumbo would become the hero of the entire village. Chapter 2: The Devastating Flood. That year, the rainy season arrived earlier than expected. Dark, ominous clouds rolled in from the mountains, bringing with them booming thunder and torrential downpours. The Mekong River began to roar, its waters rising hour by hour. The villagers hurriedly reinforced the riverbanks with sandbags, but their efforts seemed futile against nature's overwhelming force. On the 3rd night of the storm, the river breached its banks, sweeping away the huts along the shore and submerging the rice fields just days away from harvest. Ancient trees, hundreds of years old, were uprooted and toppled in a chaotic heap, blocking the main road into the village. When the rain finally stopped, the villagers emerged from their homes, stunned into silence by the scene of devastation. Houses leaned precariously, fields lay flooded, and massive fallen trees obstructed the paths like gaping wounds on the earth. Ari, a 12-year-old girl who lived with her grandmother at the edge of the village, stared at the small wooden bridge, the only route connecting her home to the school, now washed away by the flood. "Grandma, how will I get to school now?" she asked tearfully. Her elderly grandmother, her eyes clouded with age, sighed deeply. "Child, we haven't even figured out how to eat yet, school will have to wait." From his yard, Mr. Somchai gazed out at the muddy, turbulent river and the fallen trees. He patted Dumbo's back and whispered, "Dumbo, this time you'll have to help me save the village." Dumbo gently flapped his ears, as if he understood the weight of concern in his old friend's heart. Chapter 3: The Strength of Dumbo. The next morning, as the first rays of sunlight pierced through the thick fog, the villagers gathered at the edge of the village to discuss the cleanup. The massive fallen trees blocking the road not only hindered movement, but also prevented the floodwaters from receding, leaving the land increasingly submerged. "We'll have to hire machinery from the town," Thaxon, a strong man from the village, suggested. But the village chief shook his head. "The road to town is flooded too, vehicles can't get through." At that moment, Mr. Somchai stepped forward, leading Dumbo by his side. "Let me and Dumbo give it a try," he said with a firm voice. A few villagers snickered. "Mr. Somchai, elephants are strong, sure, but these trees are as big as houses. How could he possibly move them?" Somchai didn't reply. He simply patted Dumbo's back and commanded, "All right, let's get started." Dumbo approached the first tree, a giant banyan with tangled roots. The elephant wrapped his trunk tightly around the trunk, took a deep breath, and began to pull. His massive legs dug into the ground, every muscle in his body straining. The villagers held their breath, then erupted into cheers as the tree started to shift. Slowly but steadily, Dumbo dragged it out of the water and set it aside on the riverbank. The village burst into celebration. "Dumbo did it!" Aerie shouted, her eyes sparkling with excitement. From then on, everyone pitched in to help. Some tied ropes around the trees to make it easier for Dumbo to pull, while others hacked away smaller branches with axes. Under Dumbo's lead, tree after tree was cleared, and the road gradually became passable again. But by afternoon, a greater challenge emerged. A colossal oak tree lay across a narrow bend in the river, forming a natural dam that caused the water to back up into the village. "If we don't move this tree, the water will flood all the houses," the village chief said, his voice tinged with worry. Dumbo, though he had been working all day, stepped forward, ready to face the new test. Chapter 4: The Challenge by the River. The oak was not only enormous but also heavy, its roots sunk deep into the muddy soil as if daring Dumbo to try. Mr. Samchai tied additional ropes around the trunk, while Thaxon led a group of young men into the water to push from below. "Dumbo, you can do it!" Samchai called out loudly. Dumbo let out a deep bellow and pulled with all his might. The muddy ground trembled beneath his feet, and the ropes strained as if they might snap. But the oak only budged slightly before settling back into place. Dumbo panted heavily, his ears drooping from exhaustion. The villagers began to grow anxious. "Maybe we should give up. Don't let Dumbo wear himself out," someone suggested. But Aerie, with the innocent faith of a child, ran to Dumbo's side and placed her hand on his wet trunk. "Dumbo, I know you can do it. You're the hero of our village!" Her clear, bright voice rang out in the quiet air. Dumbo lifted his head, looked at Aerie, and let out a soft trumpet as if responding to her. This time, Dumbo summoned every ounce of his remaining strength. With the villagers' help, the oak slowly began to move, then suddenly broke free from the mud. The river rushed through, carrying away debris, and the flow returned to normal. The villagers cheered and hugged one another in relief. Samchai embraced Dumbo's head, tears streaming down his cheeks. "Thank you, old friend." Chapter 5: The Campfire by the Riverside. That evening, after the floodwaters had nearly receded and the main road was cleared, the villagers held a small celebration by the riverbank to honor Dumbo. They lit a large bonfire, roasting potatoes and bananas over the glowing embers. Dumbo was treated to a basket of ripe, golden bananas, his favorite, along with affectionate pats on the head from both children and adults. Aerie sat beside her grandmother, recounting Dumbo's story with shining eyes. "Grandma, Dumbo's stronger than a superhero." The old woman smiled gently. "Yes, but Dumbo's strength isn't just in his power, it's in his heart, my dear." Mr. Samchai stood up, raising a bowl of homemade rice wine, and spoke loudly. "Thank you, Dumbo, and thank you all for coming together to overcome this hardship. This river may take much from us, but it can never take away our sense of community." The villagers clapped, their laughter echoing into the night. Chapter 6: Dumbo's Legacy. Years later, after Mr. Samchai had passed away and Aerie had grown up, she became a teacher at the village's small school. Whenever she told stories to her students, she never failed to mention that fateful flood season and Dumbo, the silent hero who saved the village. Dumbo was now old, no longer hauling timber or doing heavy work, but he lived peacefully by the Mekong River with Samchai's descendants. Every afternoon, the village children still came to play with him, bringing bananas and chattering away. The elderly elephant would gently flap his ears, listening as if he still wanted to protect the village in his own quiet way. Ban Paknam gradually rebuilt its life, but the memory of Dumbo and that flood season remained a permanent part of the village's history, a tale of strength, faith, and unity in the face of adversity. Chapter 7: The River Roars Again. As time passed, the wounds from that flood season slowly healed across the land of Ban Paknam. The rice fields turned green once more, The huts were rebuilt sturdier than before, and the small wooden bridge Eri had once cried over was replaced with a solid stone one. The villagers still spoke of Dumbo as if he were a legend, though the elephant had grown very old. His fur had thinned, his steps were slow, and the once sharp eyes were now clouded with age. He often rested under the shade of the great banyan tree by the river, listening to the wind and the sound of children playing. Eri had become a passionate young teacher. She didn't just teach the children to read, she shared lessons of courage, unity, and love for nature, values she had learned from that long-ago flood. Among her students, Chai, Mr. Samkai's grandson, was the one closest to Dumbo. Chai had grown up beside the old elephant, hearing his grandfather's tales of how Dumbo pulled trees to save the village, and he saw Dumbo as his personal hero. But peace didn't last forever. One day at the start of the rainy season, the sky darkened with thick clouds once again. The Mekong River, which had seemed tamed, began to growl anew. This time, it wasn't a flood breaching the banks but a different danger. A small dam the villagers had built to store irrigation water was showing signs of cracking. If it broke, the water would sweep away the entire rice crop, the village's lifeline. The villagers gathered in a panic by the river's edge. Thaxton, now the village chief, barked orders. "We have to reinforce the dam now, or we'll lose the whole harvest." But the current was fierce, the muddy ground slippery, and human strength alone seemed insufficient against the river's power. Chai, though only 14, ran to Dumbo and gently shook his trunk. "Dumbo, can you help? The village needs you again." Dumbo slowly lifted his head, gazing at the boy. His sluggish movements made some villagers doubtful. "Dumbo's too old, let him rest, don't push him anymore," one of them said. But Chai was resolute. "No, I believe Dumbo can still do it. Grandpa said Dumbo would never abandon our village." Dumbo and the new generation. Eri, upon hearing about the dam, rushed back from the school. She saw Chai tying a rope around a large rock, essential material to block the water, and leading Dumbo toward the riverbank. "Chai, be careful!" Eri shouted, but she didn't stop him. She understood Chai's faith, for she too had once believed in Dumbo the same way. Dumbo stepped into the water, his legs trembling with age. Chai stood by his side, encouraging him and lending a hand. With the little strength he had left, Dumbo wrapped his trunk around the rock and dragged it bit by bit toward the dam. The villagers, witnessing this, could no longer stand idle. They joined in, pushing and pulling alongside Dumbo to finish the task. One by one, the rocks were set in place, the dam was reinforced, and the raging water was held back. When the final rock was positioned, Dumbo collapsed on the riverbank, exhausted and panting heavily. Chai threw his arms around the elephant's head, tears streaming down his face. "Thank you, Dumbo. I knew you wouldn't abandon us." The villagers applauded, but deep down, everyone understood, this might be the last time Dumbo exerted himself for them. The promise by the river. That night, under the faint glow of the moon, Eri and Chai sat beside Dumbo. The old elephant closed his eyes gently, his breathing weak but peaceful. "Teacher Eri, will Dumbo be okay?" Chai asked, his voice trembling. Eri took his hand and smiled. "Dumbo has done so much for our village. Now he needs to rest. But you know, Chai, his legacy isn't just his strength, it's his spirit of never giving up. You'll carry that on, won't you?" Chai nodded, clenching his fist. "I promise, teacher. I'll protect our village, just like Dumbo did." The next morning, as the sun rose, Dumbo passed away quietly in his sleep beneath the familiar banyan tree. The villagers held a simple yet heartfelt farewell ceremony. They buried Dumbo by the banks of the Mekong River, the place where he had spent his life safeguarding the village. Chai stood before Dumbo's grave, whispering, "I won't forget you. Thank you, my hero." From then on, whenever the river roared, the people of Ban Pak Nam no longer felt fear. They remembered Dumbo, and they believed that the new generation, like Chai, would carry forward the old elephant's spirit, keeping their village steadfast beside the mighty Mekong. Chapter 8: Seeds of Hope. After Dumbo's passing, Ban Pak Nam fell into a quiet stillness. The laughter of children still echoed through the air, but lingering within it was a longing for the old elephant who had been with them through so many flood seasons. Chai, now a guiding spirit for the younger generation, was determined not to let Dumbo's legacy fade into mere memory. One day at the start of the dry season, as the rice fields began to wither from lack of water, Chai had an idea. "Teacher Airy, if Dumbo could save the village from floods, then we can find a way to store water for the village too, right?" he asked. Airy smiled, recognizing the creativity in the boy's thinking. "What do you mean, Chai?" she replied. Chai led Airy and a few adults to the riverbank, pointing to a low-lying area where floodwaters had once risen. "We could dig a reservoir here. When the rainy season comes, the water would flow into the lake instead of flooding the village. Then, during the dry season, we could use it to irrigate the fields." Chai's idea surprised everyone, but it also sparked hope. Thaxton, now the village chief, nodded. "It's a good plan, but it'll take the strength of the whole village." The villagers got to work. With hoes, shovels, and even their bare hands, they dug into the earth, creating a simple yet sturdy reservoir. Chai, fueled by the passion of youth, led the effort, working tirelessly while sharing stories of Dumbo to inspire the others. Though Dumbo was no longer there to haul the massive rocks, they learned to cooperate, using ropes and pulleys to move materials. After weeks of labor, the reservoir was complete, standing quietly by the river as a testament to their unity. That rainy season, the reservoir caught its first streams of water. Instead of flooding, the water was held back, ready for the dry months ahead. The villagers cheered, naming it Dumbo's Lake, a tribute to the elephant who had inspired them to overcome adversity. Chapter 9: A New Breeze. As time passed, Ban Pak Nam not only recovered but flourished. Dumbo's Lake didn't just store water, it became a place to raise fish, bringing a new source of income to the villagers. Airy, in her role as a teacher, began educating the children about protecting the environment, encouraging them to plant trees around the lake to prevent soil erosion. The small village gradually transformed from a place that merely endured nature into a community that learned to live in harmony with it. Chai, now 18 years old, had grown into a strong and intelligent young man. He often took the village children to the riverbank, recounting the story of Dumbo and the flood from years ago. One day, while sitting under the shade of the banyan tree, where Dumbo once rested, Chai noticed a tiny sapling sprouting from the soil near the elephant's grave. He called Airy over to see it. "Teacher, what do you think this is?" he asked, his eyes lighting up. Airy examined it closely and smiled. "It's probably a new banyan tree. A seed from the old one must have fallen here." Chai nodded, feeling as though it was a sign from Dumbo, a final gift left for the village. He resolved to care for the sapling, watering it daily and shielding it from the harsh sun. The village children joined in, turning the task into a joyful game. The little banyan grew year by year, becoming a new symbol for Ban Pak Nam. The villagers believed it was more than just a tree. It was Dumbo's spirit, quietly watching over them. Chapter 10: The Call of the River. Many years later, when Chai had taken over as village chief after Thaxton retired, Ban Pak Nam faced a new challenge. A large company from the city arrived, proposing to build a massive dam on the Mekong River to generate electricity. They promised jobs and money, but Chai and Airy saw the cost. The river would be blocked, Dumbo's Lake would dry up, and the village's way of life would be altered forever. The villagers split into two factions. Some wanted to accept the offer, hoping for a more prosperous life, but Chai and Airy stood firm in opposition. "This river is the lifeblood of our village," Chai declared at a village meeting. "Dumbo taught us how to live with it, not against it. If we let them build this dam, we'll lose who we are." Airy rose to her feet, her voice full of conviction. "We built Dumbo's Lake, planted trees, and raised fish, all with our own hands. We don't need anyone to save us. Let's hold on to the legacy of Mr. Som Chai, of Dumbo, and of ourselves." Their words struck a chord in the villagers' hearts. In the end, the entire village united to reject the proposal, determined to protect their river. The company left, but the story of Ban Pak Nam spread far and wide. Other villages along the Mekong heard of their stand and came to learn how they built reservoirs and lived in harmony with nature. Chai and Airy became sources of inspiration, carrying Dumbo's spirit beyond the boundaries of their small village. Chapter 11: Under the Banyan Tree. On a peaceful afternoon, as the sun dipped low over the river in a blaze of red, Chai, now with streaks of gray in his hair, sat beneath the large banyan tree he had nurtured from a tiny sapling. Beside him was his son, a boy named Sam, named after his grandfather Sam Chai. "Dad, was Grandpa Dumbo real, or is he just a fairy tale?" the boy asked. Chai smiled and pointed toward Dumbo's lake, shimmering in the glow of dusk. "Son, Dumbo was real. He didn't just save the village, he taught me and everyone else how to live with strength and unity. Look at this tree, that lake, they're all here because of Dumbo." Sam listened, his eyes wide with wonder. "I want to be a hero like Grandpa Dumbo," he declared. Chai ruffled his son's hair and laughed heartily. "You can be, if you believe in yourself and never give up." The Mekong River continued to flow, silent yet powerful, a witness to Ban Pak Nam's story. Under the banyan tree, Dumbo's spirit lived on, passed down from generation to generation, ensuring the little village thrived forever beside the endless river.